Some products come along and either set the pace or act as a catalyst to elevate things to the next level for people to notice and pay attention to when it comes to an emerging segment. In this case, after spending close to a month with the Asus ROG Ally, it's safe to say this is the catalyst for handheld PC gaming. My experience with the Asus ROG Ally is basically the definition of living a dream that is now a reality way sooner than expected, and of course it does come with its drawbacks and imperfections, but at the core, this is such a game changer for the progression of high quality gaming on the go, especially when it comes to PC gaming, which for years has had the perception of only being enjoyable on a custom built PC desktop or even laptop. Let's start with the overall design and build quality. I will say for the overall size of the Ally, I was expecting it to be a tank to hold, but at just 608 grams, the lightweight nature makes it one of the best parts of using it. I will say, with my experience using other handheld gaming PCs, it's not the most ergonomic feeling or outright premium, but it's still definitely well put together when it comes to the fit and finish. I very much appreciate the controller layout following the Xbox controller with the additional buttons with the M1 and M2 at the back, and how the power button even doubles up as a fingerprint scanner. In terms of ports, at the top is one 3.5mm combo port and also one micro SD card slot with UHS 2 speeds and one ROG XG mobile interface with a USB-C port. All in all, I really like the design and the build quality of the Ally, but here are some things I would love to see. An additional USB-C port would have been great. In fact, I wish a USB-C port was USB 4 compliant, but I do understand Asus would rather favor their XG mobile interface instead. And last one for me is the spacing in between the bumper and the trigger buttons, because I've found it way too easy to mispress them when gaming. That being said, Asus knocked it out the park when it comes to the design and build. The display and audio experience has got to be one of the biggest highlights of using the Ally, and becomes one of the definitive reasons why it sets itself apart from the competition. Stating the obvious, yes, the bezels are big and disproportionate, with the top and bottom having thicker borders compared to the left and the right. This does take away from having an elegant and aesthetically pleasing visual look to the viewing experience, but once you move past that, this is near enough a technical masterpiece. The display is using a 7-inch 16:9 aspect ratio IPS LCD display with a 1920x1080p resolution, touchscreen support, and most importantly, a 120Hz high refresh rate with support for VRR using AMD's FreeSync Premium. In addition to a 500 nit peak brightness level display. That combination of VRR, 120Hz and 500 nit display really sets the Ally apart, and coming from other handheld PCs that usually compromise on either resolution, refresh rate, and brightness, having a device that basically has it all is a dream. To complement that awesome display experience is the speakers, and wow, Asus did not play when it comes to just how good the speakers are. It's not just down to how loud they are, but also the quality, the clarity, and also the lack of distortion when experiencing playback. The weird thing is, you only really notice how good the speakers are once you stop using them, and there's this weird feeling of instant silence to your ears that makes you realize that, damn, these speakers are loud. I look, you feel like I'm more impressed by the sound than the display. You know what, let me take that back. Both are impressive. Let's now talk specs and performance, which will then lead into the gaming experience. If you didn't know, there are actually two models of the Asus ROG Ally, which Asus decided to release the more powerful version first to kick things off. This is powered by the AMD Z1 Extreme processor with AMD Radeon RDNA 3 graphics, 16GB of LPDDR5 RAM, and 512GB of SSD storage. A few things to note: the thermal design power, aka TDP, is rated up to 30 watts and total graphics rating is 8.6 teraflops up to. Hopefully in the future I will be able to get the standard Z1 non-extreme model, compare them and see how much do you lose out when spending £100 less for the Z1 in performance and gaming experience. Being a lifelong PC gamer, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that we've gotten to this stage where this is the level of specs we have in a handheld PC. And what's even better is the cooling system, because this is Asus in their bag when it comes to thermal management, performance, and acoustics. Using what Asus likes to call their new zero gravity thermal system, it's using dual fans and advanced space safe and efficient heat pipes, and with the direction of how it manages the airflow and heat, you never feel the device is being too hot when holding it. And this is by far the quietest and the most acoustically friendly handheld PC I've used. Speaking of that, if you've gotten this far feeling friendly and finding this video useful, then be sure to like and subscribe. Before we get into the gaming experience, I want to touch on one of the pain points out of the box when it comes to a device like the ROG Ally, which is the SSD. And not the performance of the SSD, but the storage size of the SSD being 512 gig. I know what you're saying, there's a micro SD card expandability. Yes, and of course you can upgrade the internal SSD with more storage if you choose to do so. But basing this on the out-of-box experience and considering the size of Windows 11 as well, 512 gig is not a lot of storage to work with, especially when considering the core games I play on PC. What are those core games? For me personally, Gears 5 will be at the top of the list, then followed by God of War 2018 for PC and Forza Horizon 5. Due to the sheer size of these games, and each being in the triple-digit gigabyte install size, I pretty much could not install any more games. Consider my gaming experience when using these AAA titles were all in the 25 watt turbo mode when running on battery, and also 30 watts when plugged in. Yes, there are so many benchmarking variables to consider when testing and playing on the ROG Ally, with less demanding games working perfectly fine at 15 watts or even less at 10 watts silent mode. But for my case, and the games I enjoy, it's turbo time all the way, baby. When using the in-game benchmark in Gears 5 at 720p with medium preset, I averaged 78 FPS. Next was 720p at the high preset, which I averaged 65 FPS. Switching to 1080p at medium preset, netted 51 FPS, and 1080p with the high preset at 42 FPS. Using Forza Horizon 5's in-game benchmark at 720p with the medium preset, I averaged 71 FPS. Next up is 720p at the high preset with an average of 69 FPS, and then switching to 1080p at medium netted 59 FPS and 1080p at the high preset with 54 FPS. Now, God of War doesn't have an in-game benchmark, but at 720p with the original preset, I averaged 53 FPS. Next is 720p at the high preset with an average of 40 FPS. Then switching to 1080p at the original preset, netted 35 FPS, and 1080p at high preset with 25 FPS. Now, considering this is with no image reconstruction techniques in use like Fidelity FX, Super Resolution FSR, and RSR in-game or using Radeon drivers, this to me is impressive and the stuff of dreams. Again, where you can use FSR and RSR to gain extra performance without sacrificing too much visual quality to your preference, then make sure you do, because it makes a world of difference. And thanks also to the 120Hz and VRR display backed with low frame rate compensation when outside of that VRR range, the visual experience when gaming is just a godsend. And I love it. For all the praise I can give the gaming experience, it's really down to the software that enables it to be the case. But at the same time, this is equally the part that holds back the maximum potential of how much greater the Asus ROG Ally could be. And that's because of Windows 11. This isn't really down to Asus, but it's more down to the nature of the beast that is Windows 11. Because of Windows 11 and DirectX, you don't have the limitation of using just one video game store or launcher to access your games. As, for example, Gears 5 is from the Xbox app using my Game Pass Ultimate subscription. God of War 2018 for PC is on the Steam store, and even my copy of GTA 5, when I choose to install it and play it, is access from the Rockstar launcher. Having the same flexibility and access to my games as I would do on my custom built PC and laptop is great. But at the same time, Windows 11 isn't really built to be handheld friendly. The power management has a lot of improving to do, and also the lack of performance optimization when gaming at lower wattage below 25 watts leaves a lot on the table. Like, look, don't get me wrong, Asus did a great job with the addition of their command center and their Armory Crate software to help centralize having access to all your games installed across all launchers in one place, the ability to customize things like RGB lights, command center, button remapping, and even more, down to a custom power profile. It just still feels like it's going against the core experience of Windows 11, and at times comes with bugs and instabilities when even doing basic UI navigations. Again, praise where praise is due. Asus have been around the clock in pushing BIOS, firmware, and software updates to make sure that the performance and experience is stable and consistent. But consider the fact that I have a fast gigabit download connection. One thing you have to bear in mind is that this is not an out-of-the-box experience, meaning you have to be ready to put a good couple of hours away to make sure that Windows 11 and all the accompanying software and apps are all up to date. And that's before you start to even consider your game install times. I'm definitely ready to put up with that, but that kind of experience is something where I've come from the PC gaming background. But if otherwise you're not built for that level of patience, then you are in for a ride of test and patience. A major part of the user experience with the ROG Ally you really have to take into consideration is the battery life and charging experience. This is almost one area that felt like a flip of a coin when it comes to what you would experience and get in regards to battery life and charging experience. It's using a 40 watt-hour battery cell and supports 65 watt fast charging with the included USB-C charger, with charging times from 0 to 50% in approximately 30 minutes, which is really good. That's well and great, all things considered, but when you're on battery in the 25 watt turbo mode with intense AAA gaming like God of War with max brightness, you won't be getting any more than an hour to maybe 75 minutes of gaming if you're lucky. On top of that, the Ally is very picky when it comes to third-party power banks and chargers that either allow it to work in the 30 watt turbo mode or even work at all. For example, my Shargeek Storm 2 power bank flat out does not work at all, and not all the high wattage PD wall chargers activate the 30 watt turbo mode when plugged in. It's such a guessing game that I really wish Asus just played nicer with third-party chargers and power banks that are PD compliant. Away from that, just know that battery life is a touchy area to manage, and for me personally, having a high capacity, high wattage power bank that works is essential for the best on-the-go gaming experience. Just remember, for the good, not so good, and the in-between when it comes to the experience that ROG Ally brings, the price we're working with here is £699, which for me is far from cheap, but considering what's at hand here, this is an incredible achievement from Asus. It just makes me wonder how much more accessible the 599 Z1 model will be when it's ready. Either way, this is currently the catalyst of handheld PC gaming.